Hello and welcome. Settle in and enjoy our story. If you do, we'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. Jack and Melissa were a study in contrasts. A couple who, despite their opposing natures, had found a delicate balance in their life together. Jack was a man of quiet contemplation, one who found solace in stillness and privacy. Melissa, on the other hand, was a vibrant spirit, energized by the company of those she held dear. So when she suggested a trip to the mountains to unplug and relax, Jack thought it was a brilliant idea. He imagined tranquil days spent with his wife, the gentle murmur of nature as their soundtrack, and a canopy of stars overhead. Melissa, however, had a different harmony in mind. A few days before their departure, she casually mentioned that Claire, her best friend from college, might join them. "She needs a break as much as we do," Melissa said, offering a smile Jack had long learned was nearly impossible to refuse. He hesitated. He had nothing against Claire. In fact, he found her charming and witty. But this trip was meant for the two of them. A chance to reconnect, to find their way back to the quiet center of their relationship. Still, he relented, knowing how deeply Melissa cherished her friendship with Claire. When they arrived, the cabin was just as Melissa had described, a remote refuge nestled among towering pines that seemed to scrape the sky. It was simple but charming, with a stone fireplace at its heart, rustic furniture, and the welcoming scent of wood smoke. It was the kind of place, Jack thought, where time itself seemed to slow down. Claire arrived not long after, bringing with her an infectious energy that instantly filled the quiet space. With a broad smile and a voice full of life, she quickly filled the cabin with laughter. Jack, who normally preferred the quiet, found himself smiling at the stories Claire and Melissa shared about their college days. It was like seeing a side of his wife he hadn't seen in years, carefree and unguarded, as if she'd stepped back in time. As they prepared dinner, Claire and Melissa became a seamless team in the kitchen, trading inside jokes and knowing glances. Jack offered to help, but Melissa waved him off gently. "This is our chance to prove we still have our old skills," she said. He stepped back, watching from a distance as the two of them moved in perfect sync. Despite feeling like an observer on the periphery, Jack was determined not to let it spoil the evening. He was probably just overthinking things. Dinner was a spread of simple, delicious dishes that smelled of home. Claire insisted on a toast to friendship, raising her wine glass with a declaration that stuck in Jack's mind. To old memories and new adventures. He smiled and raised his glass, though a faint sense of unease began to stir within him. There was a hidden current in her words, a deeper meaning he couldn't quite grasp. The conversation flowed easily, carried by Claire's natural gift for storytelling. Melissa was captivated, her eyes alight with every word. Jack contributed where he could, but mostly he listened, trying to decipher the powerful bond between them. He wondered why Melissa had never fully conveyed the depth of their connection. But again, he dismissed it as his own overanalysis. As the night grew colder, Melissa, ever practical, suggested lighting the fireplace and moving to the living room with blankets. They gathered on the sofa, the lights low, the fire crackling a soft rhythm. Claire recounted a recent trip, and Jack watched the way Melissa hung on every detail, her expression one of pure fascination. He tried to relax into the moment, but he couldn't shake the feeling that while he was physically present, he was emotionally miles away from the two of them. As the warmth of the fire filled the cozy, wood-scented cabin, the three of them continued to chat. Jack, feeling a bit more at ease, managed to crack a few jokes that sent Melissa and Claire into fits of laughter. For a moment, his worries subsided. This was just a friendly getaway, and he knew how much Melissa thrived when surrounded by people who made her feel at home. It was nearly midnight when Melissa made an unexpected suggestion. "The bed in the main bedroom is huge," she said, her smile making it sound like the most natural idea in the world. "It's so cold out. I think it would be fun if we all slept in there together, like a campout." Claire, always up for an adventure, laughed. "I'm in. Who needs privacy anyway?" Jack raised an eyebrow, taken aback. The idea felt strange, but he didn't want to be the one to kill the mood. "Well, if you two think it'll be comfortable, sure," he said, forcing a casual tone. While Claire and Melissa bustled around, layering the bed with extra blankets and pillows, Jack stood watching. There was a fluid, unspoken understanding in the way they moved around each other, sharing laughs and glances. A fleeting, unwelcome suspicion surfaced in his mind, but he quickly pushed it away. It was just his imagination. Soon, all three were settled in the enormous bed, Jack in the middle, Melissa on one side, Claire on the other. "Relax, honey. It's just for one night," Melissa teased, patting his shoulder. Claire stretched out with an exaggerated sigh. "This bed is amazing. I might just claim this spot for good." They all laughed, and the light-hearted mood seemed to dissolve any lingering tension. But sleep wouldn't come. Soon Melissa and Claire began chatting in hushed tones, reminiscing about college parties, pranks, and all-night study sessions. Jack lay with his eyes closed, listening. He didn't want to intrude, but he was beginning to feel profoundly out of place. Though he was lying next to his wife, he felt like an observer in a private world that didn't include him. After a while, Melissa turned to him and whispered, "Are you asleep yet?" He opened his eyes and managed a faint smile. "Not yet. Just listening to you two." Claire giggled softly. "Our stories must be so dull he's about to nod off." Jack tried to laugh, but the strange feeling of unease wouldn't let him relax. Gradually, the atmosphere shifted. The whispers grew quieter, their muffled giggles becoming more secretive. He felt a tightness in his chest, a discomfort he couldn't name. He told himself they were just best friends catching up, but his intuition screamed otherwise. "Let's turn off the lamp and try to sleep," Melissa suggested. Jack agreed, hoping the darkness would bring some peace. But even in the dark, his mind was racing. The sound of their soft breathing and the occasional stifled giggle echoed in the silence. He sensed this night would leave him with more questions than answers. In the dead of night, Jack was pulled from a light doze by a soft sound. At first, he mistook it for the wind sighing through the pines, but then he realized it was coming from inside the room. It was whispers and hushed laughter, a secret conversation not meant to be overheard. He opened his eyes, letting them adjust to the dim light cast by the dying embers in the fireplace. The flickering light threw dancing shadows across the walls, and he could just make out the forms of Melissa and Claire lying side by side. His heart began to beat faster. It was probably nothing, he reasoned. Just a harmless chat. Yet he couldn't ignore the intimacy in their tone, a closeness that felt exclusive. Trying to appear as if he were naturally stirring, he shifted slightly. The whispers ceased instantly, replaced by an abrupt, heavy silence. He turned toward Melissa, his voice laced with a curiosity he couldn't conceal. "What are you two whispering about? You woke me up." He aimed for playful, but a hard edge of doubt lay just beneath the surface. Melissa's reply was too quick, too practiced. "Oh, nothing important. Just a funny college story." Claire added a short, supportive laugh. "Yeah, just silly friend stuff, Jack." But in the faint glow, Jack could see that neither of them would meet his eyes. Their explanation felt hollow, staged. He settled back down, but sleep was now impossible. The seconds ticked by, each one amplifying the tension in the room. Before long, the whispering resumed. This time, Jack didn't have to open his eyes to feel the weight of it. The very air seemed charged with an unspoken secret. He turned again, his voice more direct this time. "Are you two going to sleep, or is there something else you need to talk about?" His words cut through the darkness, and he sensed them both flinch. A moment passed, filled with a silent, invisible exchange he could feel but not see. "Relax, Jack," Melissa said, her tone strained. "We're going to sleep now." Claire offered a nervous little laugh, but said nothing. Jack lay motionless, his senses on high alert. The whispers stopped, but the unease remained, pulsing in the quiet room. The rest of the cabin was wrapped in the deep peace of the mountains, but in their bedroom, a secret hung in the air, just beyond his reach. He was left to wonder if it was all in his head, or if something was unfolding right beside him. The silence held, until it was broken again by a sound that made his heart pound. Muffled laughter, more intimate than before. It wasn't just a random giggle. It carried a closeness that felt deeply unsettling. He lay still for a moment, trying to process it. He was an intruder in his own bed. Unable to endure the mystery any longer, he pushed himself up on his elbows. "Are you going to sleep?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. "Or is there something else going on?" The room fell dead silent, as if his words had frozen the air. Melissa and Claire glanced at each other, their silent debate palpable in the darkness. Finally, Melissa spoke, her voice a brittle mix of defensiveness and nerves. "Jack, calm down. We're just talking. You're imagining things." She forced a small laugh, but it sounded hollow. Claire simply offered him a small, enigmatic smile, as if waiting to see how he would react. Jack narrowed his eyes. He knew his wife well enough to know when she was hiding something. Her dismissive answer, combined with Claire's knowing silence, confirmed his deepest fears. "Something else?" Claire finally whispered, her voice soft but piercing the silence. Jack looked from her to Melissa, waiting, but they said nothing more. Instead, they shared another look, and the energy in the room grew so thick it was almost tangible, heavy with a tension he could no longer ignore. Feeling he couldn't breathe, Jack rose slowly from the bed. He didn't want a confrontation, but he couldn't stay there. He grabbed a blanket from a nearby chair and walked out of the room without another word, his footsteps soft on the wooden floor. "Jack, where are you going?" Melissa called out softly behind him. He didn't answer. He walked to the sofa in the living room, lay down, and stared at the ceiling as the distant crackle of the fire filled the silence. A maelstrom of emotions churned inside him, confusion, anger, and a sense of betrayal he couldn't yet name. He had no proof, but he knew with chilling certainty that something had irrevocably broken that night. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the cabin, illuminating the living room where Jack lay on the couch. He hadn't slept, his mind replaying the night's events. The silence in the cabin was no longer peaceful. It was heavy with unspoken words. He heard soft footsteps. It was Melissa, wrapped in a robe, her expression calm but her eyes guarded. "You slept out here all night?" she asked, her tone carefully casual. "I did," Jack replied, his gaze steady, waiting. She looked away, busying herself with a mug on the kitchen counter, avoiding the conversation she knew was coming. Claire emerged moments later, appearing far more at ease. "Good morning," she chirped, as if nothing had happened. Jack just nodded, watching them both, searching their faces for answers. As the three of them sat for a tense, quiet breakfast, Jack finally broke the silence. "About last night," he began slowly. "What was really going on? Because it felt like you were hiding something." The fragile morning peace shattered. Melissa and Claire exchanged a fleeting, panicked look. "Jack, you're overreacting," Melissa said, her voice defensive. "It was nothing. We were just talking and you took it the wrong way." He shook his head, his eyes locked on hers. "You said something else." "That wasn't just talk, Melissa, and I'm done with vague excuses." Claire, who had been silent, let out a slow sigh. She set down her mug and met Jack's gaze directly. "I think you deserve the truth," she said, her voice a mixture of sincerity and relief. Jack felt his stomach clench. It was coming. "Claire, no," Melissa started, but Claire held up a hand. "We can't hide it anymore, Melissa. He already knows." Leaning forward, his heart hammering, Jack waited. Claire took a breath. "The truth is, for years, Melissa and I have shared a different kind of bond. It wasn't planned, and we never wanted to hurt you. But what we feel for each other, it's more than just friendship." Jack's world tilted. He looked at Melissa, silently pleading for her to deny it. But she simply lowered her head, her silence a more potent confirmation than any words could be. A wave of disbelief, pain, and cold anger washed over him. He stood up slowly. So all of it, the laughter, the looks, it was this? He didn't need an answer. The silence said everything. "I never wanted to hurt you, Jack," Melissa finally whispered, her voice trembling. I I just didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could manage it all." Jack drew a sharp breath, struggling to keep his composure. "And I was supposed to what? Piece it together? Go on thinking I was losing my mind?" He looked at them both, his face a mask of disappointment. "You could have just been honest." Without waiting for a reply, he walked to the bedroom, packed his bag, and left the cabin. There was no shouting, no dramatic scene. He just walked away, leaving behind a silence that was louder than any argument. On the long drive home, the truth settled in. As painful as it was also a liberation. No matter how much it hurt, the truth was always better than living a lie. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew he deserved more. "I deserve honesty," he thought to himself, as the cabin disappeared in his rearview mirror. Thank you for joining us for this story. If you were moved by it, please consider subscribing to the channel and enabling notifications. We look forward to seeing you again.